Horror has a long history of creepy villains of all sorts, from vampires to ghosts to straight-up ghouls. But one of the genre's favorite villains of the modern era brings a whole new level of terror. Wealthy elites with a taste for blood, metaphorically, and sometimes literally. Whether it's a group of disturbingly like-minded 1%ers or a deranged family focused on safeguarding their generational wealth, these are actual psychopaths with a desire to bring harm to everyone who isn't in their in-group. So let's take a deeper look at this growing trend of killer rich people, how their economic status makes them an even bigger threat than your typical villain, why characters in their position have these disturbing desires in the first place, and what it says about our own fears of being at the mercy of the most powerful. The horror genre loves a family that slays together. The idea of a loving family coming together to participate in such horrific acts is as disturbing as it gets. It takes something that's typically upheld as pure and central to our society, strong family bonds, and turns it into something grotesque. Historically, these dangerous families often appeared in so-called hillbilly horrors, where they're depicted as inbred, mutated, or deformed in some way. More often than not, they were also cannibals, like Leatherface and the deranged Sawyer family in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and the Jupiter clan in The Hills Have Eyes. The latter seemingly kidnap and kill because that's how they survive out in the Nevada desert after being victims of radiation. But other horror families are more hedonistic, simply taking pleasure in depravity, violence, and hurting innocent people. Their grisly appearances and barbaric way of life depict them as feral animals rather than human beings. The horror of their stories essentially rests in the idea that being poor molds one into something nearly inhuman, and thus they become terrors for normal, aka not poor, people to flee from. On the highest end of the socioeconomic spectrum are the wealthiest of monsters, those who have the means and endless resources to do whatever they want and the status to get away with it. Being unassuming lets them seamlessly integrate into society, exemplified by so many of the real-life all-American serial murderers that populate true crime media. They're not living in rural areas where their evil deeds are hidden from prying eyes. Instead, they exist in a bubble of privilege, armed with money, shelter, and education. The most well-known conception of rich people hunting humans comes from Richard Connell's short story The Most Dangerous Game, first published in 1924. In it, Rainsford, a big game hunter, falls off of a yacht and swims to an island for refuge. He finds a chateau owned by General Zaroff, a fellow hunter who has grown bored of targeting animals. He tells Rainsford that he's invented a new sensation: hunting people, who he believes are the scum of the earth. And because he sees these people as essentially less than human, he argues that he's actually helping them by giving them a place to stay while he hunts them for sport, that is.
Take half-drowned men from ships you've wrecked and drive them out to be hunted.
I give them every consideration. Good food, exercise.
Characters like Zaroff, who become disillusioned with regular hunting and seek something more challenging, have become their own trope in horror media. The Hostel franchise's elite hunting club exists to give rich people the chance to act on their most twisted fantasies of violence, with the stipulation that they must kill their victim by the end. Despite the name, the members don't go out and find people to kill. Instead, they bid on potential victims. Hostel Part 2 sees American art student Beth Salinger using this exclusive service to her advantage.
Don't tell me what I can't afford. There's nothing I can't afford. I could buy and sell everyone in this room.
She buys her freedom with her inheritance and gets the satisfaction of maiming and killing the man who was about to do the same to her. Similarly, in Fresh, a man makes his living off selling the flesh and body parts of women he lures to his secluded home.
I'm gonna sell your meat. People pay me a lot of money for it. And your hair. And weird shit like that.
Like Zaroff, he tries to claim his victims live in humane, even comfortable conditions before, killing them. Another offshoot of the trope has emerged that meshes with our modern interest in game shows and winning big. Except here, the contestants aren't often just playing for money, but also their lives. The killer rich people in these stories essentially get off on exploiting these people's desperate need for money and use it for their own entertainment. Netflix's hit South Korean series Squid Game is just that, an old billionaire tired of the usual privileges afforded to him who wants to play schoolyard games.
돈이 하나도 없는 사람과 돈이 너무 많은 사람의 공통점이 뭔 줄 아나? 사는 게 재미가 없다는 거야.
Yes, the participants are willing to go along with it, but they don't initially know that elimination means death. And once they do realize what's going on, they feel that they're too far in to give up. The problems and stressors of their regular lives also mean their lives could be over at any moment, and so they wager that at least here they have the opportunity to change things. In Would You Rather, a wealthy philanthropist Shepard Lambrick gathers a group of people, each in need of money for various reasons, life-saving medical treatments, paying off debt, etc. Again, no one is aware of the deadly game they have to play in order to receive money when they first agree to join. Shepard's son Julian looks down on everyone, and even though they're being tortured, he still expects gratitude.
You agreed to be here. You're basically asking my family for a handout. The least you could do, pig. You show a little respect.
For these ultra-wealthy villains, they know that choosing people in lower and middle classes for their games will usually guarantee they'll get away with harming and even straight up killing them, because society so immensely favors the rich that they can get away with anything. Ready or Not's Grace marries into the affluent Ladamus family, who made their fortune on board games. As a former foster child, she really wants a family of her own and is actually excited to join their brood. However, the Ladamus plan is to make her play a sinister game and sacrifice her to the supposed demon they owe their lifetime of success to.
I'm really sorry about all this. It's true what they say, the rich really are different.
They'd rather murder someone than potentially suffer financially because of a curse that not all of them are even certain is real. There are also a number of staff members who die by mistake and are given very little concern and are essentially seen as disposable by the family. Like Grace, Get Out's Chris is an orphaned outsider entering a wealthy family. Except even more horrifyingly, the Armitages don't just want to kill him. They've been kidnapping black people for decades and implanting their bodies with the brains of rich white people who desire their characteristics and talents.
With your natural gifts and our determination, we could both be part of something greater, something perfect.
In American Carnage, fictional Governor Harper Finn orders all undocumented immigrants be detained. Their children are sent to work at a nursing home caring for the elderly, allegedly to earn their parents' freedom. But beneath the already heinous act, there's an even worse motivation. Young detainees are injected with a hormone that tenderizes their muscles until they rapidly age, and eventually get used for hamburger meat. Despite whatever lies they may have initially used to cover their evil doings, it becomes clear that this horrifying facility is really only a vehicle to get rid of everyone that the rich deem to be unworthy of living. In the Purge franchise's alternate America, ruled by a fictional political party known as the New Founding Fathers of America, citizens have one 12-hour period a year where they get free rein to commit any crime, murder included. The annual holiday supposedly leads to lower unemployment rates and crime, but as we find out, these stats stem from intentionally targeting specific communities. While the government-sanctioned Purge isn't an exclusive right for the wealthy, their income clearly gives them a huge advantage over others who can't afford protection. The first installment centered on the Sandins, an upper-class white family hiding out in their house with a state-of-the-art security system. When their son gives refuge to an unhoused black man, the group of purgers he was fleeing from invade their home.
Mr. and Mrs. The man you're sheltering is nothing but a dirty homeless pig. A grotesque menace to our just society who had the audacity to fight back.
The follow-up film, The Purge Anarchy, expanded the world, showing how and why people decide to purge, while we see plenty of lower and middle-class communities relishing in the temporarily legalized violence. We also see wealthy elites as they bid on people at auctions, allowing them to kill in the safety of a secure venue or their protected homes and property.
It's how the wealthy purge, baby. They buy poor and sick people, and they take them into their homes, and they kill them where they're safe.
The first Purge takes us back to its inception, the experimental stage when they paid people to participate. But when not enough people were purging, the NFFA sent in mercenaries disguised as civilians. We learned the main reason for this annual holiday was to get rid of the lower classes completely.
This country is overpopulated, Doctor. There's too much crime, too much unemployment.
Is that even true, or did you falsify those numbers?
We also see how, despite the mayhem the rich had expected, the participants mostly engage in low-level crimes. The rich have to deliberately ratchet things up to get the kind of large-scale violence they had been hoping for, the kind that would then allow them to justify their decision to eliminate those same people. Throughout the franchise, there are characters who band together and take down the elites, benefiting from their suffering. Horror movies about the monstrous elite showcase our very real fears and anxieties about how much control and leeway billionaires are afforded in our society.
Fucking rich people!
We all know on some level and see it play out every day that wealth allows people to play by very different rules from the rest of us. Killer rich people horror stories just make the violence inherent in immense wealth more readily visible. And while that is horrifying to see, these stories often also end with a normal person fighting to end the cycle of violence and save themselves, which is vicariously fulfilling, but also reminds us that while the security of wealth may seem impenetrable, with tenacity and a bit of luck, we can escape their grasp. That's the take. Click here to watch a video we think you'll love, or here to check out a whole playlist of awesome content. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. And make sure to subscribe to our Patreon for exclusive new videos.